Are we unmuted? We are unmuted.
We're unmuted.
What is happening? Geez, I got us full screen. There's a whole lot of us on here. Rich Mallory Woods. Rich is in California. Mallory, where are you?
I'm in Orlando, Florida for this entire week.
Show us to your side.
Let's see.
Can you turn your thing?
There we go. We're at the WKC World Championships, which is in Orlando, Florida,
Yeah.
about a mile away from Universal Studios, Florida.
Okay, and then show us the other side. What's out? What are you looking at?
So we've got some people that are currently warming up. So some hits for the mats. There's a gentleman there with a bow, a couple guys waving. And let me get the other side. There's some gentlemen down here doing kata.
Yeah.
They are warming up for their gold medal rounds that will happen tomorrow. There we go. Let me get this back. Boom.
And there'll be point fighting as well as demonstrations and weapons and forms and such, right?
So they've got forms, weapons, continuous sparring, point fighting, and all gold medal rounds. And these are adults and children.
Wicked, cool. We like to hang out and we like to talk about martial arts. And so among we stream on Black Belt Magazine and Sport Martial Arts. And Mallory, you're there with Sport Martial Arts, right?
That is correct. Here helping to cover. If you want to peek in under this, look us up right on Facebook or YouTube, and we're streaming all the rings. Everything is live this entire week, so it'll definitely be fun, worth looking into, and something new for you.
Yeah, good times. Terry, we're good.
Terry, what's up?
Off camera, we've sat down, the three of us, the 7th week in a row we've hung out. And each time we're like, actually, you know what, man, like this podcast thing, I don't know why people say it's hard. We literally just hang out with our friends and talk. And some people seem to like it. So it is cool. What do you guys want to talk about today?
Let's see. What do we got? Yeah, here we go. The best marketing versus the truth.
So let's go through some things, and we don't get organized. This is not what this is about. We don't sit down and comb through the media and figure out what will create the most clicks. We hang out, we chat. So, but Fedor fought on the weekend, and Fedor is one of the best. And John Jones is in a lot of trouble. He's one of the best, and Khabib retired. But the best, very difficult to quantify, especially in a world where we're selling shit, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that. That may lead this naturally to this, it may not, but a lot of the way we sell things, promote things, entertain people, we use a lot, more than ever, we use a lot of cliches. More than ever, in my lifetime, in media and the way we talk about things, cliches and sound bites and narratives, this is everything. Rich, I was like, hey guys, this is not going to be pressure. This is just going to be a pleasure. Rich texted back, pressure is a privilege. I'm like, damn it, this is a good thing. I want to talk about this.
Boom topic.
Recovery is training. I was training the last few days. This is something I've been talking about with my coaches, very important. And then I got some thoughts on something. I've been really nerding out over game theory lately. But let's start here. Rich, you were not in Russia, but you were watching Fedor fight.
Yep. And man, he delivered. He continues to defy the odds. Continues to to earn all the accolades and the adulation that he receives. What was interesting was DC's comments. Daniel Cormier came out and said, "Man, this guy wouldn't even hang." With this era of guys, and it just started this whole big conversation there. And I don't know. I didn't pay too much attention to it. Not that it's not worthy of discussion. I just enjoyed another Fedor performance, man. One of the guys that I can say in my experience over the last 20 years in this game, one of the few guys that genuinely has aura, man. It's
yeah. Can you imagine fighting him?
What's that?
Can you imagine fighting him?
Yeah.
I was in Portland, West Lynn, Oregon, just before Chael was fighting him. And I was with Chael. I spent a couple of days with Chael. And Chael was getting ready for him. And he was doing what you do, which is not going to be beat when I first get in there. I'm not going to be freaked out. It's not Fedor. It's just a guy. And then after Chael fought him, he was like, holy shit, he's a lot faster. Like the hands, the way he moves, it's a lot different. It's interesting. So Cormier is actually a very good friend of yours, I think, right? That's accurate. Like you guys are close. And Dan's really good at what he does. And he seems to really enjoy what he does. From a media standpoint now as a retired fighter. And he works in that realm of ESPN where hot takes and talking shit and creating conflict and making buzz and getting headlines becomes a part of the thing. And that's part of what he was doing, you know, no doubt about it. Daniel Cormier watched that fight and also went, whoa. And, you know, Tim's not the guys he mentioned. Tim isn't Daniel Cormier. Big Tim is a great fighter. It's not Daniel Cormier. But a lot of the time, what people are saying is selling stuff and marketing things and promoting things.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, this topic, as several, you know, of our topics do, just kind of touches on things we've talked about in the past. And, you know, we talked about pound for pound, GOAT, how these things are just, you know, they're great content for, you know, hot takes and whatnot. But it's, you know, just hard to measure, impossible to measure and quantify.
Yep.
I have something to add to that in the thought. So, for example, as long as we've had champions, we've had an aging champion, maybe a champion that's former champion that's aged out, and you have the up and comers. So a lot of times the term gatekeeper is thrown into, you know, in there. But when you are a young guy, a younger fighter, and you take a fight against a legend, obviously you want to defeat him so that you can add to your, you know, your prestige. But what more than adding in the pelt to the belt does the former champion or the great? You know, it adds to his legendary status and everything. But really, who has more to lose in that position? You know,
so
the up and comer.
So I did this this breakdown. Haymakers is like a really good partner I do, and this is Floyd punching out Ricky, and Ricky goes flying into the thing. And Floyd does a check hook. So actually, we'll discuss, quote, we'll open this discussion with, quote, the check hook. Because if you watch the UFC, you literally, and I'm no disrespect, I'm not trying to be rude to anybody that works there, but you think any hook is a check hook because everything is called a check hook if you just watch mainstream fighting, right? But so when that thing posted, I was looking through and trying to interact with people and share it and chat about it. And like 3 or 4 people were like, Canelo would knock out Mayweather. So this is to exactly what you said. They're like, Canelo would knock out Mayweather. And I was like, I guess they don't know they fought.
Yeah.
And I guess they don't know when they fought. Mayweather was just right near the end of his peak.
Yeah.
And Canelo was this hot shot that you knew was going to be great. And they met at this point very favorable to the old smart champion. Not that different than when Matt Hughes met George St. Pierre for the first time. There's many examples of this. That's kind of what you're talking about. And it's an interesting aspect of time itself. You know, if BJ Penn fights that 50-50 guard kid from Ryan. At this stage, that happens. If BJ was at a different age and that he fought a different guy, like this is just how that is. But it's an interesting aspect of time itself and people's journeys and travels.
When they intersect, it is huge depending on what fighter you're talking about. That also reminds me. I remember when some friends were first starting to gather and watch UFC fights, and Matt Hughes fought Hoist. And those people that were there, they were saying that, Hoist is going to mop the floor with them. Did you see UFC, you know, 1 and 2? And I said, well, the game has changed now. It's different. I think that Matt Hughes is going to beat Hoist. And that's what happened. But those people had been removed from the UFC all through that time. And then the rise of Hughes when he came about and, you know, combining wrestling a lot more with jiu-jitsu and being aware of it and also having cardio for days. And he beat them. And they were stunned, just like the first time when I saw Silva beat Franklin. I was just like, who is this guy? What just happened? You know?
Yeah. But I think some of what we're talking about here, when we were sort of bringing up this idea, was, you know, I saw this just the other day. So we had Dan Lambert last week, We'll get Dan on again in a couple of weeks because Dan's our friend, and Dan's smart and cool, and he's a really interesting cat, and he runs American Top Team, so he's around great fighters every day. What's her name? Judo Kayla Harrison. My friend Aaron, who I work with, was talking to Dana White about Kayla Harrison. Now, Kayla Harrison, Dan just told us, I believe last week, and if he didn't, he's told me multiple times, Kayla will be and Amanda train together. Kayla wins minutes. Kayla wins rounds. Kayla wins positions with Amanda Nunes. That's real. But if you, when my friend Aaron asked Dana White about it, he's like, well, she can stay over there and make all that money, but, she can avoid the best fighters. It's like, this idea of who the best is and where they are, this suits the conversation of whoever's, controlling the narrative,
It's promotion. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's promotion. And over time, I think people develop a bit more of a trained eye and have this instinct and a feel for the game. And hopefully you can cut through all that. But yeah, that's promoting 101. My guy or girl is better than yours. Yeah, when it's at the moment impossible to prove, right? I mean, real live competition in training, sure, it gives you an idea, but yeah, that's the name of the game.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, how soon after did AJ McKee win his belt? Then people started saying, well, I wonder how he would fare against all these other featherweights. So, who's to say? And that's good for talking and debate. But like you said, Rich, okay, is that really going to happen? Is that, are you going to come to some cross promotion? More than likely not, but it makes a great sub argument of, type of conversations.
This is an interesting thing here. So when we were talking about cliches, and Mal, you sent a couple to me when we were chatting about it. And in quotes, I think you said, quote, it's going to be a war, quote, and he/she has a puncher's chance, right? These things, and as soon as we were like, okay, well, the idea of cliches and sound bites and these things that we say, the reason I said, what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses is because there's a really interesting curiosity to the power of words. And one of the strengths of these cliches is if you keep saying something long enough, large amounts of people will just treat it as if it's so. That is the great strength of a cliche or a soundbite. I don't care, and I don't know who's any of you guys who are watching. Not trying to get anyone mad at anybody, but whether there is more going on than simply the big lie or stop the steal, right? Like whatever's happened, or knockout power in both hands, or striker versus grappler, whatever cliche or soundbite you create minimizes all of the possible things to think about to the point that it can sort of streamline the thinking. So if we say, and you'll see that this is how you know that that your friend is actually doesn't know a lot about martial arts, where you bring up AJ McKee and somebody go, or Michael Venom Page or Demetrius Johnson in Asia, and somebody will say, bro, when are they going to fight in the UFC? Like really get tested. It's like, okay, you are now a recipient of one of the strengths of cliches and sound bites. You have been brainwashed into believing a marketing message, right? Whereas the weaknesses is if I say striker versus grappler over and over again, I will start to believe that dynamic is actually cut and dry true. It undermines my thinking ability. If I say knockout power in both hands versus a heavy chin, and you start to believe it's this versus this, and there's no other variable, that's the weakness. So I guess the strength and the weakness is the same. If I'm trying to sell you guys a message, I use sound bites and narratives. That's strong for me. If you're trying to think freely, it's weak for you, but it's the same mechanism, right?
I'd agree. It is almost just like a carnival barker. You need to step right up and see the strongest man in the world. He can do this. So you have to gather attention. You have to gather attention. This guy, and always another great tool of this, he is 13-0. Okay, maybe he fought very low tier talent for the first 10 fights, and there have been 3 that we've seen, but still that undefeated, it has that mystical power. He is an undefeated fighter, such and such and such. And then this guy, whatever his record is, but whatever I'm going to sell you to believe, He's he's got 12 knockouts and everything else. And I mean, that's the reason why you keep stats like that. And that's why we came up with the technical knockout. TKO just gets shortened to KO. So this guy's got 50 knockouts. You're like, wow. Most of those were stops by the refs because the guy didn't know where he was at, but it sells. It sells the fighter. It sells the fight.
Yeah. What do you guys, how much or how little do you actually care about? And Rich, you're a promoter, so in your business it matters different. But just as a person, as an athlete, as a fan of athletes, football, baseball, fighting, whatever, how much or how little do you care about the cup or the belt or the title or whatever? A lot or a little, or is it vary?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a lot.
Yeah.
I think a lot. I think it does matter. I think there's more pressure. I think there's I think you really get to see somebody, I've always felt the hardest thing to do is it's hard to get to the top of the mountain. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
Either that longevity, I think that's what defines who the best guys are. I mean, there is pressure, man, being the champ. There's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot that comes with being in these big fights. So I do think there's a lot of, and sometimes it's just not necessarily about the actual hardware. It's just everything that comes along with it. Some people can't handle success. They just find a way to, they just everything. They just can't handle it. Everything changes, and then they can't, maintain. I think that's why we look at the greats. They're consistent guys that have stayed on top. That defines their greatness, right? So it's not necessarily, the actual hardware itself, but just being the target every day, man. Just waking up knowing that everyone is out to get you, right? And you always have to be on, that everyone's going to come at you and be on their A game and and do anything they can to take you out. Whereas you're just like, man, here we go again. So as of you gentlemen, so yeah,
it's interesting because I was thinking that too. Like Tyson Fury is the champ, the performer. He's the lineal champ, I believe, too. Like that's real. And ultimately, we're talking about belts and titles, and being the greatest, I think, is so deeply meaningful. In a world of greats, like, good Wilders, how good these guys are, how hard it is to be the best of those. That's amazing. And then, so when you're the best and you proved it, we got to give that a name. So give it a title, right? So create a title. This is your title. Not as important as the thing. It's just a representation of the thing. But now you're that thing that's real. I'll give you a title. So it's not as important, but it is part of it. Now, what if we give you a symbol? Like, here's a belt, right? Now we also give you a belt. But what matters is the greatness, the winning, the victory, the journey, the accomplishment. The belt less so and the title less so. Do you guys, I think that's kind of what you're saying, Rich.
Yeah, I will say this. Combat sports are really the only sports out there where you cannot be the best and still you can still make a lot of money and have a tremendous fan base. There are a lot of fighters that are popular, right? That are, Nate Diaz's, George Mallory. They're not champions, Masvidal, but they are wildly popular. Yeah. It doesn't work like that in other sports. When you're not winning,
who cares?
You're losing, right? I mean, that's just, I hate to say it. There's no like, oh, those guys play hard and, it's different in fighting. You can still be celebrated. You can still be appreciated for not, just being that guy that goes out there. It's just different. And for good and for bad, but there are guys who, I mean, you see it all the time. Like, I'm not interested. I just want big fights. I'm just a prize fighter about the money. I don't care about the belt. But, and I'll say, to add to that, and to quote a good buddy of mine of ours, Jay Glazer, has said this to me before. It's applicable not only in football, but just really in fighting and almost everything these days. What he said that really resonated with me when we were chatting one day, and he's gone on record and said it on his various platforms. But these days, everybody wants to be famous, right?
Yeah, right.
I want to be in big fights, or I want to have all these followers, but It's not necessarily about being the best or being great. And I think that's where the belt, as you said, I still think that is the pinnacle of, of really achievement.
Yeah.
It
Mal,
still means
Mal,
something,
I'm gonna
in my opinion.
throw you this thought. Patty something, he's got a bowl cut. He's
yes, I know you're talking about. Yep.
Patty, what's his last name?
Patty Pimblett, I think. Or
Yes. Yeah. So he's got a bowl cut and he's pretty good fighter. I actually think Sugar Sean is a very good fighter when I look at it with that sort of trained eye. But he's got colorful hair and he smokes weed and he's got a lot of followers. Those guys are already making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Sean for sure, and Patty will be very shortly. And they didn't fight anybody yet. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to either them or who they fought, because they fought people a lot farther along than I'd ever fight. So it is still something. But in the context, they actually have it. But as you're saying this, Mal, tell me this. As you were saying, that doesn't exist in other sports. Mal, you'll know this. Was Dennis Rodman like one of the 20 best players in the league when he was famous?
So
like there's been there too, right?
That's an interesting argument, especially since this is the 75th year of the NBA and they just came out with their 75 best players. I glanced at it. I don't think Rodman was on there. I could be wrong, but also to use that cliche, look at who's in the Hall of Fame. Dan Marino is in the Hall of Fame, but how many Super Bowl wins does Dan Marino have? He has 0. He's a fantastic player. He owned all the records before your modern day Brady's and Breezes and everyone else. But in terms of, we just measured that by belts, titles, and rings and championships won, then you're going to have a lot smaller Hall of Fame. I mean, that's just true to form. And Rodman was, and speaking of Rodman, Sugar Sean, I think there's a slight element of that. Rodman did anything he wanted to. His hair wore cheetah print one week. Yeah. It's blonde. Yeah. It's rose colored. He gets ejected. He takes his jersey off and runs and throws it.
He drank Jägermeister out of a chalice. Apparently,
he was with Carmen Electra for a bunch of hours in Vegas. Married to her, Madonna, and Rodman got eyeballs, and I think that was the start of being famous versus being what else we were talking about. Rich, go ahead, Rich.
But he won. He's a winner.
This is true. He did win a bunch of NBA championships. So where does that line intersect at?
Yeah, those guys don't. It's like I said I think in stick and ball sports. Yeah, when if you don't win, if you don't have that, that takes you to a whole nother level. You're elite, right? I mean,
yeah, right. Part of the best team. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously there were some guys that weren't the main stars but have several rings, like a Robert Ory. Steve Kerr, and you're over there flashing your rings, but you weren't the main, and you can flash that in front of like all-time greats like Barkley, Ewing, Malone that have none, right? But it's the team sport, right? So you played with Jordan or whoever, and you won.
Right. But I mean, it was Jordan who actually said the reason why Barkley and Ewing, those guys don't have rings is because of me. That's
right.
And he has said that.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Like, and that's the truth. So this Synth here says, just very simply to this conversation, these kids are flashy, and they are. Yeah, and then fun. That's everything he just said there is truthful. Yeah. And what this becomes about, the actual conversation of this is not about them. It's about human nature. Like, what's more important to us? What are we drawn to right now? What are we drawn to? What are we responding to?
You're exactly right. And we are in the internet age and the likes and the clicks and everything. And, Sugar Sean's got his hair, and he does some flashy things. I mean, he's a very talented
fighter. He's a great fighter. He is a great fighter. That's the thing.
And he has that flash, and there's that flash in the back, and he's riding that wave. I think he's positioned himself to where, okay, all right, let's forget he has a loss. He has a loss on his record. But that doesn't make the difference anymore. You can have the whatever and one and still be great and get eyeballs. Patty, I just saw him for the first time.
He's a good fighter too.
I looked up, first thing I saw the bowl cut. I was like, who is this guy? And I sat down and watched the fight. I was like, I like this dude. I like him.
Yeah, his fights in England against good guys, he fought well. That's the interesting thing is, these two guys are really good young martial artists. Really good. Sean's actually got elements of what he does, sort of physically, what he can do, that are advanced, very, very advanced physiologically. Both of these guys are actually really good fighters, but it's an interesting thing. They're like, hey, by the way, I'm sort of famous. People really like me. They seem compelled by me. How much money are you paying me? Oh, I don't need to fight bigger names. And that dynamic is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Rich, you ever deal with that?
These guys are leveraging their fame. It's funny. I actually spoke to Sean's manager not that long ago, and we were just chit chatting about him, his business, his following. I mean, he's making a ton of money outside of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's leveraging all that, so therefore, he can make comments like that. You know, these guys are now utilizing social media, their platform, you know, to create these other business opportunities and make more money. You know, all these guys. Well, Patty's new. You know, let's see where he goes. But like, you know, Sean. Again, I'll bring up Nick. Again, you know, Nick was a Strikeforce champ, wasn't a UFC champion. But you know, Nate, I don't think he's been in a title fight in quite some time, if ever. Right?
Did he fight for the title? I'm trying to remember
I don't
if he
think
fought
so.
for the title.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But
He
guys
fought for the cool belt, the bad guy belt.
Right. They're you know, the BMF, whatever, the People's Champ, right? Those titles apply. And sometimes, again, like these guys are more popular than some of the current champions, right? So this is where combat sports, and actually more specifically MMA, because in boxing, you can't be a popular journeyman and be in big fights. In boxing, they care about the best, right? I think when a young guy loses a fight in boxing, it's devastating. It's like, oh my God, what a waste of time. We blew it. In MMA, it's like, oh, he'll be back. You know,
that's
fine.
a good thing.
Yeah, he's fine. And in MMA, it's like the guy who's not the champ, who's not the best, is still very relevant and still very popular.
Yeah, it's interesting too. But all of this somehow connects. So you're flashy and you're exciting and you're making money. Paige, I've heard, and I'm friends with her in Austin and people around them. I haven't heard directly from any of these people. I haven't been let in on, but I've heard secondhand that she can make $700,000 and $800,000 a month on her Paige Van Zandt site, which is modern. You can be wearing underwear or sitting by the pool or under a waterfall or whatever. This is a modern thing. It's certainly, if you're going to judge it, you're just an old, grumpy person. Like, very normal, modern. But I've heard $700,000 and $800,000 and $900,000 a month is not uncommon scenario for her. Once you're at that point, it's really tough to go fight in a cage for 80 and 80.
Yeah. You've utilized and just leverage all that. You know, the fighting got you on television in front of people, and you couldn't climb to the top of the mountain there, but you found out these other ways. And in some ways, again, it's more powerful, and you're earning more money. So very, very, very fascinating.
In a way, your social media is like a shadow agent, because you can say, hey, I've got, you know, all these millions of people that, you know, if I just put out, last week, Nate tweeted out a picture of Tony Ferguson, and immediately everybody's roaring about, is this going to be the next big fight, this, that, and the other. And you've got sway power without an agent. You're using the power of the masses as a shadow agent. Being able to, so first of all, it works best, I think. We'll move to this in a second, because there was a couple of things that made me think of it. But it works best when it's pretty authentic. Like Nate literally, and these very smart. Him, Nick, and the people around them are very smart people. And some people that they're close to are also smart people. But they certainly don't overthink it. Like Nate would literally type, yeah, bro, you suck. I choked you out. And if he offered that to somebody, nobody would go, oh, change it to that and add this. You know, whereas some other people, it seems very calculated and they want to say everything. And the more natural it is, the better. Because if you try to enlist the audience,
you have to be super skilled at it. Dana can do
Mhm.
that. Ariel's good at
Mhm.
it too. Ariel can use the audience to be mad at Dana or ESPN or support him. Like there are people in different aspects of it who are very good at it, very smart, very calculating, very strategic in how they use it. But it seems to be that the best ones are just being themselves at a time when the audience digs it. We talked about pro wrestling last week. You guys appreciate it more than I do, but you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin was somewhat planned and somewhat he just was drinking beer and slamming them together and swearing and stuff.
And
And it
fighting his
worked.
boss. Mhm.
And fighting his boss, and it kind of worked, right? Like it works better when it's kind of real.
Yeah, guys, I'll throw this out there at you. This just came to me as we're having this conversation, but I will tell you, 20 years ago when I was negotiating fighters and putting, deals together and booking fights, the concept of a fighter or a manager presenting is this good for our brand, it didn't even exist. Man. It was just fighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to fight that guy? How much? All right, let's do it. Nowadays, it's a full on. What is this for our brand? And where does this position us? Like it's changed. I mean, like there's more money in the space. It brings more eyeballs. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just kind of dating myself as far as how long I've been around, and conversations have shifted from, hey, let's sit down, figure this out. What can you do for our brand? What, as opposed to just, do you want to fight or not? Yeah, I do. Let's do it. It's a lot simpler back then, but again, it shows just how far and how big everything's become.
That
I
leads
have a
us.
question to throw out there. I just one before when we hear, and especially when we're talking about the masses talking and everything, we hear a lot of time, oh, well, I don't like this guy. He's fighting because he's ducking this guy. Since Rich, you've helped put fights together, how much of that really is true? Does people really go out of their ways to avoid a specific fighter, maybe out of fear, maybe out of skill set, while they're trying to build themselves up? Or is it we really couldn't get a deal together, or this guy wasn't available at the time that we needed to? Do people really legitimately duck other fighters?
It does happen from time to time, and it works both ways. Some guys will say, I want tougher guys, so you're kind of ducking certain level of competition in that way, or I really don't like that guy, I'm not going to give him the opportunity. If you're the bigger, or if you're, I really don't like him, I don't want to give him this chance, this opportunity. So it happens, and there's always a different scenario, always something new and different to work out. But yeah, I mean, that ego and that emotion does come into play. Like, I just don't like that guy, I don't want to give him a shot, or that girl, give them a shot, an opportunity at what I have and what I've built. It only helps them. It's like, doesn't make sense for me. It's high risk, low reward. So yeah. It's just more than, oh, that guy's really good, I want to avoid him. It's a lot more than that. That's what makes this thing so tricky and complicated, whereas in the other combat sports, again, when the promotion has the ability, like in football and all these other sports, you play who's on the damn schedule.
That's it.
Only in combat sports do you have this dynamic of, how many times, even in boxing, kickboxing, this fight didn't get put together, that guy won't fight that guy. Whether it's the fighters or the promoter, right? There's just always and fight dynamic on the business side of it. So yeah, it's a real thing, Mallory.
But when we were talking about, you can make $700,000 a month on a fan page, or you can, CBD company can give you 30 grand a month to like do whatever, right? There's some beautiful simplicity in what you're talking about. It isn't only a throwback. There are definitely human beings on earth right now who are like, I don't care about all that stuff. I'm not thinking about all that stuff. I'll go a step further. There will be ones who understand. And Nate is, to a certain degree, gets this as much as anyone, where to a certain degree, people are like, one, I don't want to waste my time doing all that stuff. That's no way to live. And two, if I don't dedicate a lot of time to it, it might grow even better than if I did. Like if you're a fighter and you're like, listen, I'm about fighting. I want to fight that guy when people talk to me. I don't think exactly the right way to talk. You don't present things just the right way when they come over to you at a Contender Series or Bellator or wherever. You don't say, "Well, I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity." This is not American Idol, right? Like at some point you're just a guy who wants to fight people. That will be fresh and vital and real at some point, but there's a beauty in that. Like, just think of how much of a hassle that is, figuring out what are we going to talk about, what pictures are we going to take, what outfit am I going to wear, what's my walkout song, what am I about, what am I going to say about Rose if someone brings her up and I'm supposed to be fighting her. Forget it. Let's just go in and train and fight. And I know that sounds old, but sometimes by doing that, you'll get a better result from all this shit anyways, because whenever there's something we don't like when it looks like everyone's trying too hard,
Mm-hmm. That is true. There always has to be someone to call out and have a reason to call this person out. But then sometimes it's worked. I remember Chael, a good friend of yours, Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. You fight me. If I lose, and it was like, oh man, now I'm really interested.
Yeah.
But then the other time, there are people that's like, I got to have a name as soon as they ask me, and I got to throw somebody out there.
Yeah. I think we're at a point now where there's this, and even it's what we're talking about right now. We act like we have to say a certain thing. We have to behave a certain way. I have to be there. Hey, Robin Black, I'm on the mic tonight. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll be at the broadcast booth with my partner. Like, you don't have to talk a certain way. You don't have to behave a certain way. You don't have to think a certain way. And once we get to this point where the conversation is about that thing's ready to be dissolved. I know this sounds way off track, but it isn't from my standpoint. Have you guys ever seen The Morning Show? Have you seen it?
I'm actually going to start that this week.
So anybody, all you guys that are watching this, if you have seen The Morning Show, that's exactly what the entertainment business is actually like. That's exactly what it's like. If you haven't seen it, watch it. But what you see is that what the audience sees, Dana White or Scott Coker or whomever is saying, we're going to run it back because this guy's the best thing, and cut. We're off camera. Now somebody's mad at somebody. This guy is betraying this kind of thing. These two guys are allies and he's worried he's going to get fired. That's the real business. And that's true of the entertainment business. That's true of a lot of businesses people work in. It's true. And once you start to see how the sausage is made, you can start to dissolve the business a little bit. If somebody comes out literally and says, who would you like to fight next? The fact that you ask everybody this one after the other, week after week, is ridiculous. As soon as somebody says that, we'll all be like, yeah, it is. How can we're all pretending that we have to behave a particular way, and we don't,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guys, I will tell you, Dan Lambert touched on it last week when we talked about the relationship and the whole dynamic between pro wrestling and MMA, and then he brought it up even on the business side. Right? A lot of those situations and scenarios have happened in MMA, the promoter and the fighter feud and whatnot, and all these different things. So yeah, it's all. And at the end of the day, Robin, like you just said earlier, at the end of the day, man, some guys just want to fight.
Yeah.
And avoid all the drama, the BS, whatever. They just really, really want to fight. And,
God, we love those guys. And
yeah, absolutely, just true fighters. So, hey, it's a fun, crazy world we're in.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, again, it defies a lot of the logic and and kind of practices of every other sport out there, or every other industry. I mean. In what world can you not be the best and still, and just, still be hugely successful? I tell you, it doesn't work. Like, I just went to the Niner game on Sunday and we lost. We're 2-2. Like, no, you're not winning. I don't care how charismatic
the coaches or whoever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. If you're not winning, everyone in this town is pissed and frustrated and talking about it. It doesn't matter. But in fighting, again, like I said, it's different. Oh, he didn't win, but man, I love that guy.
Great showing.
Yeah, I love that guy, man. He's so cool, and he's fun, and I just
So anybody, all you guys that are watching, if any of you have an example, think about it in your normal work, because that does exist in some other places. Like if you work at, the car rental place, or, you're building something or you're creating something, sometimes the cool woman or guy at the office actually does cut some slack, and everyone does love them and does kind of let them get away with stuff. And does, they do get a raise, even though they kind of didn't work. And sometimes in the real world, outside of some of these cut and dry things, and actually this will lead me to this. This is an interesting topic. Hold on. How do I show? But yeah, sometimes in the real world, the charming person or the likable person or the person with a good personality or the person who's kind or sometimes the biggest jerk sometimes gets rewarded because their personality does. But so I'm going to throw this out to you guys. Game theory. I don't know if you know, real game theory isn't about Monopoly or video games. It's game is anytime humans are interacting. That's kind of considered a game. And and there are ways that humans interact in ways that are good and bad and benefit everybody and whatever. And there are two essentially very different types of games in the world. There is a finite game and an infinite game. Finite game is like a fight. So we have 3 5-minute rounds of paradise. We were in this thing. Here's the rules. At the end, one of us will win. And that we approach a finite game in a particular way. But an infinite game is like Bellator. Bellator is an infinite game. Yes, it will have goals. It will try to sell pay-per-views if it does that, or it'll try to get ratings or whatever. But the primary game of Bellator or Nike or your marriage is to keep the game going. The purpose of the game is to do well enough in the game that the game continues. Right? And this very, very difference between these two things is super interesting. When you start to look at things this way, like as you guys are fathers, I will be a father next year. Being a father is an infinite game up until your death. You want to be a good father, continue to be a father. It's an infinite game. And you approach infinite games and finite games very, very, very different. Sugar Sean or Nate Diaz, the fight is a finite game, but their career is an infinite game. Do you see what I'm saying? And they approach them very differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're thinking about the bigger picture. That's thinking outside the cage, right? And outside of just training. Like, I'm not just a fighter. I can do all these other things. And they build all these other platforms and create all these opportunities for themselves. That just doesn't just limit them to be one thing, right? And it can keep going beyond, what happens there with that fight career. So, yeah, like those guys are, look, they may never be the best or climb to the top of the mountain, but there's something to be said for the business savvy and all those other things. Them to continue the game in some ways, and still be successful. I mean, it's impressive in its own right. It's from a different perspective than I'm the best fighter, right? But I'm a better business person, right? Or I figured how to extend the game.
Soon as I said, "Hey, does anybody know things?" And every single person said politics.
100% on point.
Well said, fellas. Hey, look, because how often do you guys go to eat at a bad restaurant, right?
Yeah,
but
one time.
But I really like the chef. He's so cool.
The chef is great. The food was terrible.
It's a fun place, but you don't. Those aren't the places you go back to. Like I said, for the most part, I guess we've established, guys, MMA and politics, right? You cannot not be the best or great and still be successful. Well,
God. Every single answer is politics.
It's politics. I think I have another good example about short game versus long game. Let's look at and we'll go to sports. Shaquille O'Neal, obviously world championship. He's won a couple of NBA rings, been with multiple teams. But beyond his career, besides being a 7-foot giant that he could not work as an undercover sheriff's deputy that he wanted to do at one time in his career, he's expanded into he's an analyst. He has been a movie star. He owns Papa John's. He owns, I think there are a billion products I see that Shaq's got his name on it. that his game has continued to expand long past his NBA playing career. Another good example is The Rock. Yes, he's held the WWE belt at one time, but now he's a grand movie star. He's a great spokesman. He almost anything he touches is gold. That's an expansion of a small game he was playing and then went to a bigger game.
What's interesting about it is, so Shaq would be an example, and in fighting, Bisping, Chael, Cormier, these guys are thinking of it the same way. Their business, they understood that the business of being Chael was a infinite game. As long as he lives, and he can't control if and when he dies. He can be healthier and he can take care of himself, but death will be upon him one day, hopefully at 112. But being Chael became an infinite game, or Shaq. But within that, Shaq had all of these finite games. And what's so life lesson about this is you have to learn. It benefits you to identify whether you're playing a finite game or an infinite game. Yep. Fatherhood's an infinite game. Business is an infinite game. What you'll do, but the fight, the game, this contest, if you're on a contract that terminates at this time and it will terminate, that's a finite game. And how you apply, it also removes pressure. I've often thought of my infinite game of learning more and more about martial arts and finding ways to do the things I do. I've classified them as finite. I got to do this and then this and then this. But as soon as you recognize I'll be doing this as long as I live, you can release some of the pressure and this weird urgency to get things done by Friday and allow yourself to learn. So identifying what game you're playing is really valuable, really powerful in martial arts, but in life.
Yeah. And let me just add that along those lines, even the way some guys are approaching their careers from I'm going to be in this for a long time, or, I'm in no rush, or I'm here in and out. You know what I mean? Just trying to, I want to, like, for example, there were a couple guys that I have worked with, and they're like, we're in no rush. We want to get our experience. I don't want to fight any contenders until maybe I'm 10, 12 and 0. And I'm just comfortable down this path. And there are other guys that are like, I need it now. It's ASAP. I want the big fight ASAP. I mean, we're fighting guys that, back in the day, guys had several fights before they got into a big fight. Guys just fought so damn much. Go look at some of these records. They're absolutely insane. Other guys that, they're winning the belt at 8-0 or, something along those lines. And, so in that way, it's a long versus short in some ways. Some guys are patient. Like I'll use, for example, AJ McKee was very patient. Dad was like,
he's 19 now. He's 19 fights, 19 wins.
Yeah, but it was just, we're patient. When the time is right, we're going to get there. And there are other guys that are like, nah, man, right now, like I want to. I'm not going to fight that much. Right, in and out, and I'm gonna win, climb, make all this money, get this fame, launch all these other projects, and then I'm out.
I just texted Mallory. Did we ever have Fernand Lopez? Did we ever have Fernand Lopez?
I don't think so.
So you guys know Fernand. So. He was Francis Ngannou's coach. Now he's Cyril Gan's coach.
Yeah.
I just texted him and asked him to join us next Tuesday, and he will. He's in Paris. I'm going to commentate for him in December in Paris. Aries Fighting Championship. First one they did was in Africa, in Senegal, and I went. It was amazing. It was so amazing. Senegal, it was the best place. Outdoors. It was so cool. But so he has Cyril, and I commentated Cyril's first 3 or 4 fights in Canada. And Francis, Cyril, he's got 2 or 3 other guys. Most are middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight, but particularly with bigger fighters. He's like, get them the toughest fights they can right away. Get them in it. Because first of all, if they're really, really good, really legit, get them in there and let them find out where they are. If they get close to it and they don't win, that bump will help them get there even quicker. And it's been true. Francis was the UFC champion all of a sudden. Cyril is gone, and immediately they fast-tracked them the toughest fights. It is their philosophy, their logical philosophy, and there's 2 examples, 2 that are simultaneously there.
Yeah, that worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, it has, but so I've asked him to come in, and I want to talk to him about that, like why that is what they believe. And actually, Kavanaugh's, Kavanaugh, you work with Kavanaugh, I'm sure almost daily now, and I love John, and I know John, I like John. He's talked about that too at times. It's like, we got to get in there. If we're going to make money, let's make money in the short term before we take brain damage. But he's also not rushing guys either, right?
Right. I will say, coincidentally, those names you mentioned earlier and the other ones that I'm thinking about, I think it's a little easier to do it at heavyweight.
Mm-hmm. It's a smaller. I think it's a smaller pool. I don't want to say talent pool. It's just gonna say it's a smaller pool. And when guys are that big,
Kane, when he became champ, I want to say he had less than 10 fights. Maybe I'm wrong.
So no, it was 9 or 10.
Yeah, 9 or 10. It's and then there's all these other guys out there with 30, 40 fights, right? Some guys just, it's a sprint for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Cain Velasquez. So he lost to Junior Dos Santos first for the title, right?
And then I think he had the title.
No,
he had the title, and then he lost it when they were on Fox.
Did he win it? Yeah, he won it against Brock Lesnar. It must have been vacant, or what was going on with that? Brock beat Randy. That's right.
Brock beat Randy.
Yeah. And then Brock, how many fights did he have when he was champ? That's
that's right.
Yeah. So you're right. Heavyweight is a big difference.
But also, according to the lore, when Dana brought him up, he said that we didn't give him any easy fights. We just threw him right in there. I think did he face? He didn't face Mir first. He fought.
He did. He had a outside the UFC, and then he fought Mir. When he beat Randy Couture, he was a 2-1 heavyweight. Then he beat Randy to move to 3-1, and then he faced off against Cain Velasquez, who was an 8-0 heavyweight.
Yeah, see,
it is a completely different.
It's a whole different game. I've told you guys this before. I've talked to elite level coaches that have had the best heavyweights, and they just say it's a little easier at heavyweight. It's a little easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And harder.
Yeah. Less guys. Less skill in some ways, just to be honest. You put a guy down, they're not really you're not going to have these battles that you see at bantamweight, featherweight. Usually the big man gets it done. I mean, look at Francis, right?
Mm-hmm. I like this is one of them, the dark horse, where the guy all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like this
what's
guy
happening?
Won. Yeah. Or the fluke. And I mean, fluke is a tough word because we don't know what is and isn't a fluke. Something seems like a fluke, but today was your day and you were the prepared one. But yes, your point is a good one. I mean, heavyweight is where you're like, oh, damn. Guys, I'm going to have to leave in 10 minutes this week too. It's baby stuff.
No worry. That's
we're
good
in
stuff.
month 7. Yeah, it's good. It's exciting stuff. What do you guys thoughts? Anybody, anything you're thinking about or playing around with, or anyone? What have you seen, Mal, just being immersed in the karate world the last couple of days?
So it's good that we're back. You actually have an in-person tournament where you're seeing a lot. So we have a lot of Canadian representation, a lot of the big team from the U.S., Uruguay, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, a lot of South American teams, and seeing people coming up and trying to get back to normal. One of the things that I have been hearing a little bit of chatter about is that I think a lot of people that have done point are looking towards karate combat for a next step or a step up and challenge. And I think that's a good level for them in terms of where the rules apply for what they've done to where they can go and actually get some professional experience and everything. So I'm hoping to see some of the guys that I'm more familiar with out here in the tournament scene make that leap, such as what Ross Levine did. But Ross was already a professional fighter who went from glory to karate combat. But I'm looking forward to seeing that.
There were some of the most interesting fights in karate combat last season were guys who had almost not fought any pro. And there was a few guys, Eastern European guys, who it literally just looked like they're amateur karate, same speed, just full contact. And those were the most fun to watch, where guys fought like it was a point karate match, but hit as hard as they could. And if there was
smaller gloves too.
Yeah. And kicking guys in the head as hard as you can. And there was a real, it looked the same. And there were some of the guys who have been around the karate world were the ones that kind of noticed that. If you take those guys and you drop them in a gym in California or Florida, you start teaching them other stuff, and that's okay too. But when they do what they've always done at the highest level, just with full contact, there's something really exciting about it.
I agree with that. I did have one other question from a topic from earlier, and this is a one-word answer. So for you, Robin, when we were talking about guys that they're just ready to fight, they just want to fight, what name comes to your mind when you hear that phrase? And the same thing with Rich, and then the same thing for female fighters. They just want to fight. They just want to. So for guys first, what name comes to your mind? We think
Rich. Rich, like there's probably someone you've dealt with directly.
Yeah, there's several. I will use somebody that that I'm very close to, and so it's a bit of a homer call here, but you guys will get it. But BJ Penn, somebody. I think what makes him unique and why I pick him is because I was fortunate enough to be with him for several fights throughout his career, and he never cared. Weight class. I mean, I say that because he was one of the original guys. He doesn't get enough credit for this, but he's fought from 145 to heavyweight. He really
that's insane.
He really wanted to fight, man. Yeah. Just one of those guys that fought everybody. Always wanted the baddest guy. Always did. Always just went and picked out. That's who I want. Let's go. Everyone says that guy's the best. He'd kick my ass. Yeah. Let's go. And that's rare. That's very rare. Yeah. Not the only one, again, but rare.
Yeah.
Robin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at the expense of it's hard to find somebody that's a better example than that. Not just because they did fight, but Jens Pulver was like that. There were actually a lot of guys in the earlier days that were like that. I'm trying to think of who else from that era, Carlos Condit too, actually. Like when I was calling Condit fights when he was like 18 in Japan, and then you'd talk to him, later at 27 and then 29 and stuff. And even the last fight or two, when they were asking him if he was going to retire, I know from being around people around him that conversation had been a reality of his life. But they asked him, and he said, when I'm in there, I'm going to feel the mat on my feet, and I'm going to breathe the air and be like, oh man, I get to do this. Like guys like that, like, God, I honestly, I'm so thankful there was a 4 or 5 year period where me and my buddy used to sit together in a room, in a little tiny room, and they would just run us 3-4 hours of these old Japanese fights for us to commentate in English. And that was a big way that I got better at my craft. I've commentated 600, 700 fights, like more than almost anybody that actively does it, just because of those days. Me and my buddy, full of coffee, commentating old Josh Barnett fights and all these things. And so many were like that back then, and Boss was like that. Guy Metzger, like that whole crew of weirdos getting on planes from America. What's his name who just fought? Nate Marquardt. When he was young, he was like that,
Yeah, it's a very old school mentality. I think all the names we're mentioning, these are legends, throwbacks. Robin, since you mentioned Carlos Condit, I'll throw this in there. I reffed one of his fights in Hawaii on the Big Island that he won. Got him into our Rumble on the Rock tournament, where he kind of broke through and, made a name for himself at a very, very young age in his career, beating Sharuto, beating Frank Trigg, and then losing to Jake Shields in the finals. But I go back with Carlos at that early stage of his career, and the guy's he's exactly what you said, just a total stud, a true fighter, man. That fighting spirit.
Yeah. So do you guys want to do something, actually? How like the whole, I don't know if anyone noticed, but I didn't even use the same name for our podcast this week. And everything's kind of allowing itself to unfold, and we haven't made clips, we haven't made any graphics, and people are already joining us. It's part of the fun. But and we're kind of making up as we go along. I asked Fernand to join us next week, but do you guys want to do something every week where we'll pick a fight and just put it in the box here and watch it together?
Yeah, we could do that.
You
We
know,
can do that.
like I don't know how to actually some large box with just us, kind of like we did, Mal, when we used to do the Bellator.
Yeah,
Live.
that's possible. We could do that.
Yeah,
Watch party.
a watch
Mhm.
party, and let's find one old fight and watch
Mhm.
it together. You know, I've got so many to choose from that are just so special and rare. And if we're hanging
Now-
out for an hour, hour and a half, and we got a 6-minute fight as part of our hang, let's do that.
Now,
Yeah,
I have a question.
magazines, it's perfect.
Do you want to do this cold, or do I get a chance to go and look at the fight and do a little free learning?
No.
We want to do it cold.
Do it
No,
As
cold,
cold.
man.
I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm
we
in.
could definitely say who it is if you
Okay,
want to
all
go and look up where they were and what they were doing, but no watching the fight. We got to watch the
Okay.
fight. Cool.
Hey,
I'm in for that. Fresh,
This-
honest reaction.
This show has always been a scramble drill, right? So let's
Yeah.
keep that.
Let's keep it.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Exactly.
Do we have any names for the ladies that are game to fight
I mean-
anytime, anywhere?
My very favorite female fighter in the world right now, actually, Sarah Kaufman's like that. Although I don't know if that's actually true, Rich. You worked with her a lot, I think, at Strikeforce. But
Yep.
my experience with Sarah Kaufman, she just likes punching people in the face when the time is appropriate. You know, I know she really wants to fight now, but there doesn't seem to be all that many places for her to. Although I think she is fighting. soon.
I saw that she just got booked.
Yeah.
I think a show
Yeah.
in Canada fighting a
Yeah.
belt vet, Jesse Miele.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jesse's tough. Yeah, I called a couple of Jesse's fights at CES before she was in Bellator.
Yep. Yeah, she's tough.
Yeah. But also Valentina. Like to me, Valentina. I know Valentina does pay attention to the other aspects of being a professional fighter that are modern, but Valentina would fight you right now. Like she would just kick the shit out of any one of us right now, and she would beat us up. Like, you know, you guys have Rich, you got height on her, and Mallory, you got weight on her, but she would kick the shit out of us. She would.
Here's the thing. Even
And
though
then
I
shoot
know
us.
it would end that way, then shoot us. I know in that way, but I would love to train with her. I would love to just, I
Yeah.
want to see it in front of me. You know,
This I'm gonna type this in here for next week. This is very much. I don't know how to title it yet, but I did a lot of training with female fighters, and there's an interesting conversation. Maybe we find somebody to come on and talk with us, maybe Cyborg or somebody about that, or somebody even that was around even earlier to tell us stories of early on being a female fighter. Can you imagine what that was like in 2003, going into gym full of pro fighters? That's an interesting conversation to have. Yeah.
I agree. That's a great one. What are we signing off with, guys? Any last thoughts?
I talk too much. You guys have a last thought.
All right, something on my mind. I'm happy about. A buddy of mine, one of my training partners, he's preparing for Masters Worlds Jiu-Jitsu in a couple weeks, and just taking it back to the beginning of why we love this, why we're still in it. I can't think of too many things. And today we had a great practice session, helping him out, helping him get ready, getting on the mat. It's just one of those things, guys. You know, it just wouldn't be the same if it was softball or bowling or, you know, I'm 42, man. You know, we're all, you know, we got our group together and we do this, man. And just when I get to do this after, it's like, this is why we love this shit. And just, I guess, sharing just some thoughts on why we love martial arts, you know, not just watching it, but from a practitioner standpoint, just to still be able to do it at this age. There's not too many things we could be doing to have that kind of camaraderie, kind of, you know, that team just helping each other get better. You know, we hit a certain age and those things kind of, they're become very limited and kind of go away, right? Like I said, I don't want to play basketball right now or do all these things I used to do a lot when I was a kid. Martial arts still, you know, it's timeless, right?
That's right.
Just a little statement there as I was leaving practice, coming home to hop on with you guys. I just thought, man, this is so cool and fun. We still get to do it. And there are other guys doing it, you know, at an older age, right?
No, we're lucky. We're lucky, man. Like, you know, and yes, it's martial arts. That's our thing. Some other people, it's soccer, bow hunting, or tennis, or climbing or whatever. But yeah, like if you get to be in your 30s or 40s, 50s, 60s with family and work and stuff, and you still get to do the thing you love to do on any amount, you're a lucky small percentage of people. I think we all have a little control, a little autonomy over our lives, so, and you can increase that, where you can try to make it a priority and find a way. But even knowing that you have some control over it, if you are able to do the thing you love doing on any regular basis as you get older and more life coming at you, we're all very lucky to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another reason why I think we all love this, why we all love martial arts.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. So that we're all, especially as a martial artist, that someone has once taken the time to help sharpen your tools to make, get better. Even though they didn't have a dog in the fight, they weren't going to compete, they weren't going to this tournament, they weren't going to worlds, they weren't going for a belt or whatever you're helping them. And at one time, the act of taking time to help someone improve themselves, and we've all given back and helped someone else without any like, hey, what can I do for you? Can I give you money? No. I'll gladly take the time. That right there, knowing that there are people that have vested interest in you and want to see you get better at your craft and will take the time, because I can pay you money, I can buy you shoes, but time I have a finite source of. And if I agree to share that with you, it's very special.
Yeah, the time, the knowledge, it's what makes this very unique, and why a very big part of why we love it. Because I just can't, like, golf, like, we're getting ready for a golf tournament. Oh yeah, we got a tennis tournament coming up. I don't know. Just say no. Just like, hey, I love people that are staying fit, healthy, sports,
doing their thing. Yeah,
but just this is our thing that we always say, and that's what obviously we're biased saying this is the shit, but so just signing off with that. I'm sure you guys out there feel the same way, that are still training at an older age and learning, and it's fantastic, man.
Yep. If anybody picks any old fight that is on YouTube that we can stream without getting kicked off, please send them our way. Thanks, everybody. I gotta literally bail immediately after we click, but good seeing you guys. And next Tuesday, same time-ish.
Yes, right? Should be able to do it same Tuesday next time. Be back home then.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thanks, everyone. A lot of love.
Later. Awesome. Hey, be good, brother.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to click the end broadcast, but I don't know. I'm clicking it wrong.
We got a little after show. This is great.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's
still
in there.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us, Rich. Lots of love, Mel. Enjoy Florida.